Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River.
Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We like to speak of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. And we please join in our opening hymn, number 343. I don't know if we've ever sung this before, A Fire Mist and the Planet. Others call it God. Please remain standing and say together our unison affirmation, which is in the order of service. Somebody start. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated. For an invocation today, I thought I'd talk a little bit about Rolling Rock. Those of you who are old-time Fall River people know about Rolling Rock. It's on County Street, just east of the intersection with Eastern Avenue. It's across Eastern Avenue from Lafayette Park, I think. Yeah. And if you are at that corner on Eastern Avenue, and if you just glance down County Street, away from Lafayette Park, you'll see this big rock. And what does this have to do with prayer? To me, this has to do with a concept of prayer I've come up with. I've sort of evolved over time thinking about prayer. And to me, now prayer has to do with noticing something and reflecting on it. And the reflection can go on off and on for days or weeks. You can do research, you know. That's what I've come to think of prayer as. And Rolling Rock, to me, is a prayerful thing. Because I look at it, it's been sitting there since 13,000 BC, okay? 13,000 BC, that 15,000 years ago, that's 150 centuries. Right? We think of a century, we have a sense of it. 150 of those centuries, the glacier dropped that thing there. There were no people living here then. I mean, certainly no settlers, but no Wampanoags either. And I think of that, how long ago that is, and I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit better about the fact that my own life is so short. I mean, compared to 150 centuries, my life is like that. But I don't find it depressing. I find it kind of, well, I'm not sure what I find it. And then I think of, well, I'll talk more about Rolling Rock later. Enough. Announcements. Normally we have a potluck lunch on the second Sunday of each month, so that would be next Sunday. So let's have a potluck next Sunday. If you show up and you haven't brought anything, it's okay. There's always plenty. You know, we don't have a checklist of who has brought something.
Plus, it's super good. So bring your snacks.
Wait, I have one other quick announcement. Here's the order of service. Over here is what has been our Zoom link for 5 years. But this has been our Zoom link for 5 years, but it expired. And we have a new one, and Eric sent a notice this week about the new Zoom link. But this was printed before that happened.
Thank you, Richard, for being here this morning to lead us in worship. You know, that has been intriguing to all of us. We've all taken pictures holding it up, right? You know, just like putting your hand around the moon at night, taking a picture of the stars and the moon. It's really has been intriguing. And I wanted to let people know that Lisa Crook will join us next week. She's on this trip next week. And I'll be telling you because I happen to have my act together this morning, what she's going to talk about. She said, here's her quote. It is a very difficult time when you look at all of this around us with a discerning eye and find the beauty. Find that which brings joy. It's easy to see the brokenness as it appears to be everywhere, but the beauty takes more attention to find it. Come join us for a service about you. I also mentioned this cough going around Patricia who had surgery this week.
Yeah, it's right up, to the left of the table.
What's that?
No,
She had a knee replacement surgery and it went well.
She's on. She's on.
oh, he's home, he's home. My organization, UIA, United Big Action, collaboration with our state and can, has been working with some of the most clergy caucus, to sort of protect the citizens, the residents of Massachusetts, from federal, overreach. And so last Friday, not this past Friday, Friday before, we, went to the Episcopal Cathedral on the Green, we were on video in Soda, and, from there, we marched to the State House and, had a prayer vigil in the Rotunda. And there were 200 clergy. There's a lot of big unions that's out there. Anyone who's like, to with that. And about 5 of them went to try to meet the government. They were trying to get the government where she would meet them. I think maybe the Catholic nun is what Army did it. She guilted one of the staff members that she knew that some of her sisters knew this was his family and that she was going to be on him until the other. Well, we found out first thing Thursday morning this past week that the governor had a press conference and was going to be doing some executive orders. I was fortunate that I got to go to the State House for that. So it does have some executive orders, and she does have some legislation that they're trying to enforce through what that is. So the actions will be to not allow ICE to use state property for staging or off-ground operations and protecting sensitive locations, and limiting federal agents entry to schools, hospitals, courts, and houses of worship. There are people there from different organizations, including superintendents and district attorneys who are supporting this. And so we had started this postcard campaign to try to get her to do executive orders. We were meeting snowed out, so I hadn't had a chance to bring this to guys' attention. What we're going to do now is, since she didn't want her to do both, for the most part, we're going to send her thank yous with keys. So if anybody wants to sign this, come see me after.
I have an announcement from Trish. She said she's doing very well. She's at home. And she's sorry she can't be there.
Susan?
Yeah, just one thing. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Can we please be joined in a spirit of prayer or meditation? This is a poem I like a lot. In fact, another minister used this a few weeks ago here. It's called A Summer Day by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And now let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. I want to tell you a story about Mr. Messier, Ms. Levitt, and Mr. Hubble. Mr. Messier, I should say Monsieur Messier, Charles Messier, was a French astronomer who around 1780 published a book called the Messier Catalog. And it was a catalog of little fuzzy patches in the sky. See, he was interested in comets. And when a comet first becomes visible, either to the eye or to a small telescope, it just looks like a tiny fuzzy patch. It doesn't have that comet shape at all. And he was frustrated because often he thought he had found a new comet, and it turned out to be one of the 50 or so fuzzy patches in the sky that are always there. So he made a catalog for himself and for other astronomers, listing these 50 or so fuzzy patches in the sky that are always there. There's one, for instance, if you know the constellation Orion, there's one below Orion's belt. It's called the Great Orion Nebula. It's a fuzzy patch, and you can just, with really good circumstances, you can see it with the naked eye, certainly with binoculars or a small telescope. I want to tell you about M31. M31 is one of those fuzzy patches. It's called M31, M for Messier, the Messier catalog, and it was the 31st thing in the catalog. Now I want to shift and tell you a little bit about Ms. Levitt. Ms. Levitt was Henrietta Levitt, who was born in 1868, I think, in Lancaster, Massachusetts. Her father was the congregational minister in Lancaster. She went to the Society for the Collegiate Education of Women, which was later called Radcliffe College. and became one of the first women in New England in the 19th century to go to college. And she was fascinated by an astronomy course she took. And after graduating, I think, I want to say 1890 or so, 1891, she worked then for years at the Harvard College Observatory. She was a computer before the word computer came to mean these computing machines. It meant people who did computations. And one of the computations she did was to estimate the distance of nearby stars. With geometry, you can do that. If you look at a star, let's say in March, when you're looking from one place on the Earth's orbit, and you look at the same star in September, 6 months later, well, that's a long distance away. And so the star looks a little different relative to the stars in the background. And with geometry, you could figure out how far the star is. But this only works for nearby stars. Well, she discovered a thing called Leavitt's Law, named after her. Leavitt was her maiden name. Okay, so it really was her name. Leavitt's Law. She discovered a correlation between the distance of a star, and if it happened to be a variable star, there are certain stars that are called variable stars. They brighten and dim and brighten and dim in a regular way over the course of a few days, or sometimes a few weeks, or sometimes a few hours. She found a correlation between the pace at which a variable star varied and its distance for stars whose distance she could calculate directly. And she assumed, therefore, that you could use this as a way of estimating the distance of stars that you couldn't measure directly. And scientists today agree that that's correct. Well, now to Mr. Hubble. Henrietta Leavitt unfortunately died of cancer when she was only 53, I think, in 1921. But 2 years later, Mr. Hubble, that's Edwin Hubble, after whom the Hubble Space Telescope is named, he was at Mount Wilson Observatory near Pasadena in California, which I think is just outside of Los Angeles. And the telescope at Mount Wilson was the biggest one in the world in 1923. And he was interested in the distances to all those fuzzy patches. And because some of those fuzzy patches have stars in them, and he could use Leavitt's law. Some of those fuzzy patches have variable stars in them, and he could use Leavitt's law, therefore, to estimate the distance to the fuzzy patches. And when he got to M31, he could see there were some variable stars in M31 that he could see with his telescope. He got a number for its distance that just blew his mind. Today, we know that that fuzzy patch, M31, is 2 million light years away. That's much further than anything in our galaxy. It's another galaxy. It's this one. It's this one. A little later, if you look at M31 through a telescope, it just looks like a fuzzy patch. It doesn't look like this at all. A human being can't see this. You get this by putting a camera with very sensitive film on the end of a telescope and making a long, long, long exposure. And that's how you get a picture like that. But that's M31. And this is the first time in the 20th century that people realized how big the universe is. Before that, everyone thought our galaxy was all there was. But no, this is the nearest galaxy that looks like us. There are actually a couple of smaller galaxies that are closer, but you can only see them from Australia. So Europeans have never been aware of them. Enough. When I was growing up, they said prayer was talking to God, and God was a big person in the sky. And mostly, you talk to God to ask for things. And we were taught to say things like, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die, for I awake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." We Catholics didn't learn that too much, but that was very common in Protestants. But we Catholics and Protestants too said, this is from the Lord's Prayer, "Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." That's talking to God, asking for things. Though, of course, I have to confess, usually I ask for less grand things, like I wanted that new Batman comic book, or I was worried about a test at school. When I got older, it started to seem silly. Imagine people praying for the Patriots to win next Sunday, and other people praying for the Seahawks to win. And imagine God getting these messages and keeping track, And what's God supposed to do? Just go for the majority or or you can almost imagine God up there at a desk, and there's a phone on the desk, and someone is praying, and they're saying, "Smite my enemies." And then there's another phone, and he picks it up and says, "No, smite my enemies." It seemed a little silly after a while. Karen Armstrong, who used to be a nun, a Catholic nun, and who is a very well-respected religious scholar, said, "I find it very difficult to ask God for things in the way that I was taught as a child. Am I supposed to believe that God is going to take away my illness when God turned an entirely deaf ear, apparently, to the 6 million Jews being killed by the Nazis? Come on," she said. Later, I started to think of God, of prayer as not so much asking God for things, but thanking God for things. This happens at grace before a meal. "Bless us, O Lord, for these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy bounty." That's thanking God for something. And later, when I was still older and God wasn't a person to me anymore, I thought of some of the Psalms. The Psalms, lots of them are prayers. And in there, I know some of them ask God for things, and some of them thank God for things, but some of them just praise God for things, which is a little grander somehow. It's another kind of thanking, I suppose, but it doesn't slip so easily into asking. For example, here are 2 or 3 excerpts from the 147th Psalm. "Praise the Lord. He determines the number of the stars. He covers the heavens with clouds, prepares rain for the earth, makes grass grow on the hills. He gives to the animals their food. He fills us with the finest of wheat," and so on. When I see a baseball player who's just hit a home run, rounding the bases and doing this, I used to think, come on, you're thanking God for the home run? Well, maybe I should be kinder and say, well, maybe the baseball player is just praising God, like the Psalm. Today, of course, I had an atheist phase when I didn't want to use the word God at all. But I've older now, I think that's a mistake. if you don't use the word God at all, well, first of all, I reject all the images of God I've been taught all my life. In fact, there's a commandment, the second commandment, that says not to make images of God, and people interpret that as meaning don't make pictures of God or statues and so on. I think it's wiser than that. Don't make images even in your mind. An image in your mind is when you're using your imagination, right? Your image-making faculty. Don't do that. The commandment says, why? Because you're going to get it wrong. No matter how you do it, it's going to be wrong, and you're going to go down the wrong path. Don't do it at all. And that's pretty much where I am today. I knew a minister once who said he seemed to be very skeptical of the traditional ideas of God, and his name, what was his name? Oh, this was in the South. He went by his initials, AJ. AJ Mattil Jr. was his name. AJ. I said, AJ, what do you mean by God? And he said, God is my heart's name for the mystery of the universe. God is a name my heart gives to the mystery of the universe. And that's why I don't want to stop using the word God, because if you stop using the word God, you stop being aware so much of the mystery of the universe. Where did everything come from? How did this start? Why am I here? You know, how can I make the best use of my short time here? You lose track of those questions if you don't use the word God, I think, anyway. So I think if you keep using the word God, you're staying aware of the big questions in life. And life is, I think, richer if you stay aware of the big questions and don't just shut them out. Kierkegaard, I'm going to quote some famous people. Kierkegaard, the Danish theologian, said, as my prayer became more attentive and inward, I found I had less and less to say. I finally became completely silent. And this is how it is. To pray doesn't mean speaking. Prayer involves becoming silent and being silent and waiting until God is heard. I wouldn't put it quite that way, but because I don't think God talks to me. But stay silent until you notice something, till you become aware of something and reflect on it. To me, praying is it's very much like the psalmist in that particular psalm. To me, it means paying attention, noticing, using all your senses, listening, seeing, tasting, and reflecting. Like I was doing with Rolling Rock. And my reflection on Rolling Rock went a lot further. I thought, all right, Rolling Rock was set down there 150 centuries ago. Where did it come from before that? See, this reflection allows for research. You can go to Wikipedia, it counts. The prayer doesn't have to be over in 10 minutes. It can take a month before it's finished. If you look at Rolling Rock, it's made out of smaller rocks and gravel and sand all stuck together. And there was a ledge somewhere north of here, maybe in New Hampshire, maybe not that far. There was a ledge of rock like that. I don't know how long ago, maybe 300 centuries ago, 30,000 years ago, something like that. And the glacier came through and plucked a big piece of rock off the ledge. And of course, this big piece of rock had a lot of sharp corners and sharp edges. But then the glacier pushed this rock down to Fall River over the course of thousands of years. And all the corners got knocked off and it became rounded. And then when the glacier melted, it was left where it is now. So the earth is even older than the first reflection made me think. When I think about how old, there's this place I was born into, right? I woke up, grew up in this place, this universe, And it just stuns me how old it is. And somehow that, it doesn't depress me. It makes me feel enriched somehow to be aware of that. The Puritans who came to Massachusetts Bay beginning in 1630, and the Pilgrims who came to Plymouth Colony beginning in 1620, they spoke of nature as God's other book. They thought of humanity and nature as separate. We weren't part of nature. There was us and there was nature. And there was the Bible, which was, of course, God's most important book. But then there was nature, which was God's other book. And they gave it, I shouldn't say this was more important, they gave the two equal status. Nature was God's other book. It's how God communicates with humans directly, besides in the Bible, they would have said. Another famous guy, remember Teilhard de Chardin? He was very popular in the 60s and 70s. He was a French Jesuit, member of the Catholic Society of Jesus, an order of priests. But he was also a scientist. And he said, by means of all created things, without exception, the divine assails us, penetrates us, and molds us. We tend to imagine the divine as distant and inaccessible, but in fact, we live steeped in the layers of the divine. Now, since the time of the Puritans and the Pilgrims, and of course, Teilhard de Chardin knew this, humans are part of nature. So that makes it even more exciting. If you think of the facts of nature as God's revelations, that means there's facts about me that are God's revelations because I'm part of nature. And somehow that's consoling. And when I feel a pang of conscience, for example, there's this thing in me called the conscience. And a lot of people say, oh, you were just brought up a certain way. That's where the conscience came from. You were socialized to feel this way. I don't think that's true. I've met too many atheists, I mean, really hard shell atheists, who are extremely moral and ethical people. They have very well developed consciences. The conscience is something in me, and I'm part of nature, so it came from nature, came from God. If you think of God as the source of nature, the source of all reality. Ignatius Loyola, another Jesuit, the founder of the Jesuits, said, God communicates with us through the deepest desires of our hearts, through our deepest needs and longings and strivings. And I'm reminded of a passage in the prophet Jeremiah in the Jewish Bible in chapter 33, I think. Jeremiah, supposedly, God talks to Jeremiah, and Jeremiah repeats what God has said, okay? And you don't have to believe that to find this a valuable insight. In Jeremiah, God says, I have put my law in their hearts. I have written my law on their hearts. That's the conscience. That's the conscience. So I think prayer is, to me, has become noticing something and then reflecting on it, like noticing Rolling Rock, like noticing that I have a conscience and I have these pains. I'll tell you my latest prayerful experience. This is all weird stuff because it has to do with my personality. Your experiences would be completely different. But I play solitaire a lot, and I had a prayerful experience playing solitaire. It was a several-week experience because I had to do research and stuff. I was playing solitaire, and I was thinking about how many different solitaire games are there? How many different ways could you deal out the cards? Well, it boils down to the number of ways you could arrange the cards in a deck. And I used to be a math teacher, so I know the number of arrangements of cards in a deck is what mathematicians call 52 factorial, which means, it just means 52 times 51 times 50 times 49 times 48 times 47, all the way down to 2. That number, you multiply them all together, that number is the number of different ways of arranging a deck. And if you think about it, it makes sense. The top card could be any of 52, but once you've chosen that, the next card can be any of 51. And once you've chosen that, the next card can be any of the 50 remaining, and so on. Well, what I was wondering, here's my prayerful experience. I asked myself, what kind of a number is that? How big is that anyway? I mean, I wanted to have a concrete sense of how big that number was. And I did some research, and I found out that I found a wonderful article, in fact, by a guy who said the title of his article was Numbers That Blow Our Minds. And that was one of his examples. He said that number is bigger than the number of grains of sand on all the beaches on the earth. But that's not all. That number is bigger than the number of atoms making up the earth. There are billions and billions of atoms in a tiny little bit of my fingernail. So imagine how many atoms there are in the entire earth. He said, that number is bigger than that. In fact, he said, and this is what blew my mind, the number of ways you can shuffle a deck is bigger than the number of atoms in our galaxy. There are hundreds of millions of stars in our galaxy, many of which have planets. The number of atoms in our galaxy is smaller than the number of ways you can shuffle a deck. And I thought, wow. That means every time I deal out the cards to play solitaire, I've dealt out a game that is almost certainly never occurred before in the history of the world. Each game is unique. And then I thought, and my body is more complicated than a stack of 52 cards. So my body, which is kind of an arrangement too of atoms, so my body is unique. There's no other body that's just like mine. I'm unique, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you. We're all unique. And well, anyway. To me, prayer has become noticing and then reflecting on what you notice. And now for the support of this congregation and its work, the morning offering will be gratefully received and I hope freely given. We come to our time of sharing joys and concerns. The theory is that joy shared is multiplied and a concern shared is divided. It's math. Everything is math.
Well, it's good to see all of you. And after a few weeks of Mother Nature keeping us in the pot. But the last time we gathered here was Martin Luther King event, which I just want to thank all of you who did participate and contribute to that in one way or another. It really was the most successful of these many, I don't know how many Martin Luther King Day events we've had. The numbers were larger than ever before, and the diversity was also more than ever before. So the Our Revolution group that meets here, we meet every second Thursday of the month, 6 p.m., and we explore possible alternatives to the current state of affairs. We look at things that are local, things that are international, and I encourage you that they want to join us to come on the second Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. So it serves as our community social action committee. Since we don't have a social action committee within the congregation, but we do have our revolution. So our revolution was the sponsor of the Martin Luther King Day, was co-sponsored by the Unitarian Society. Our new partner, Temple of That Valley, joy to see the eternal flame that Temple of That Valley has added to our community. And also, we invited as guests the AME Bethel community, which is part of the Black Church. And we also had more folks from that community joining us as well. I think if we do another one with King Day, that maybe we'll just have 4 groups sponsoring it rather than inviting AME Bethel to be our guest, let them be part of the organizing of it too. I think that might add another dimension. So, at any rate, as a joy, that was wonderful. I guess concern is that since that day, America has continued to battle with this destruction of community. That Minneapolis is just devastating. To think that America, our country, is responsible for the death of American citizens, and how many others are suffering because of American policy. So, I guess my concern is hovering over us, causing me to be somewhat depressed. But you help me overcome that depression, and that's appreciated.
I just wanted to let people know, sometimes people after the service ask me what time is that, or whatever. In case you don't want to talk to me about it, I started putting up a file card down there in the hall that will list off what the tunes are. If I was really organized, I might have it together in time to on the order of service, but more often than not, I'm not that organized. And so if you wonder what it was I was doing, you can always check into that. Or you can talk to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I have a big joy. Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. Beautiful. I love it. That's the biggest thing. And of course, I'd like to shout a big shout out to Indiana Hoosiers. First time in history to go undefeated, to win the national championship, to be the #1 team all across the board. And it's never happened before. It's amazing. That brought joy to me and happiness to all the people who went to Indiana, who is a true Hoosier. But at the other hand, we have others who are online. I'd like to say hello to Paulette, Al and Trish, and Susan Dujon, and Dale. All have joined us today on our show.
Any more? Can we join, please, in our closing hymn, number 352, Find the Stillness. May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Amen.